Hi, this is John Cola with OKRaw.com, and you basically saw all my meals that I've eaten today. If you checked out my other videos, I made a meal on basically making a coconut blueberry smoothie, and then with bananas. And then for lunch, then I had basically a green smoothie with basically orange juice and spring mix. And then I actually had a small meal of papayas that I didn't film. That's pretty self-explanatory, just some fruit. And now I'm back, and I'm going to show you how I make my dinner. And so what I'd like to say is that, all these ingredients that I'm using today are available from basically two places, Costco and Trader Joe's. If you don't have a Trader Joe's, if you go to a health food store, you can get some of these common ingredients. So for dinner tonight, I'm going to have a salad, and I'm going to make my salad out of basically, it's called petite heirloom lettuces. Now these are some of the best lettuces that I've actually tasted besides my garden and besides the farmer's market. They're some of the best lettuces that you'll find. They're basically baby lettuces, and they're just so tender and so good. I bought these at Costco. I'm not sure if any other places will sell them yet. I've only seen them at Costco. So check your local Costco to see if they have the petite heirloom lettuces. They're actually really delicious. Highly recommend them. It's about $4 for a box, and it's 6 heads, and every one weighs a little bit different, so go around and weigh each one and get the one that weighs the heaviest. So this is actually a better value than the spring mix. The other thing I'm going to use tonight, cut up on top, I like to use the mini cucumbers, which are pretty much baby English cucumbers. They're quite good, and they're greenhouse grown, so generally they may not be sprayed. See, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a dressing, and the dressing is basically going to be out of sugar plum tomatoes or cherry tomatoes and raw Brazil nuts in the blender with a little bit of miso for flavor. So let's go ahead and get started. First step is to make the dressing. So we're going to go ahead and take the tomatoes. I've already pre-washed them, and we're going to basically put them in the blender carafe. So the first step is to blend the tomatoes up. And I like to start the blender off really slow. Alright, so we just blended the tomatoes into a liquid, and now it'll be good to add the miso. So I add like a little bit of miso in there for some flavor. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add the Brazil nuts. So my goal every day is to eat no more than a handful or two at the most, so I like to just use my hand as the measuring device. You can see I'm not getting a good, didn't cut that bag good enough here. So the larger your hand, the more nuts you'll be eating a day. I find that a lot of people in the raw foods movement eat way too many nuts, and that's way too much fat in their diet, and it's not too healthy. So if you're smaller, you'll eat less nuts, and if you're larger, you're going to eat more nuts. So that's about one handful, and let's see how that does. Let's see how it does with one handful of nuts. I like my dressing's a nice creamy consistency, not too watery. Let's go ahead and blend that up. Alright, so we've just blended up our dressing, and it's nice and thick. I've only added basically one handful of nuts. It's pretty nice and thick there. I like thick dressings, don't like it too watery there. So we want to definitely limit the nuts. Next step is we're going to basically fill our salad bowl with salad. So we're going to use the petite heirloom lettuces. I like to take out each head. Now I've already pre-washed these. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off the ends. And then I hold this pretty tight actually like this. And I'll just go down the line and I'll just slice it up. So this kind of makes shredded lettuce, pretty much. It's really fast and easy to do this. So when I, eat meals, I try to keep things really simple. As you can see, a lot of my meals, have only a few ingredients at a time. Now when we eat only a few ingredients at a time, our bodies are going to be able to better digest that, and it's not going to get, our bodies aren't going to get too confused by all the different foods coming in, and you're going to get better digestion. So I like to teach the optimal, and so this is maybe a goal for where you should maybe strive to be at. If you're not here yet and eating so simply, that's great. But I think a lot of people in the raw foods movement that have recipe books, they just kind of teach you what they're doing, and they don't maybe teach you the best way or the end goal. They just kind of teach you all these recipes that have lots of ingredients that take so long to make. And you know, I'm really a practical guy. So I want to make this practical, fun, and enjoyable, and hopefully you've seen in my videos that I have lots of fun playing with my food and making food. And I'm glad that I could share this with you. So, you know, please post your comments down below, below the video here, and let me know what you think. I live for comments. Well, that's one of the things I live for anyways. So basically, I think I'm doing 5 heads of the petite lettuces there, and we have 2 left now. Now the other thing, you know, I don't know how long you've been into raw foods, but what you're going to realize is that, you know, especially if you're new into raw foods, you're going to realize that you're going to have to eat a lot more quantity of food than when you were eating, you know, standard American diet or processed foods. And here's the reason. I mean, I'm cutting up lettuce right now, and lettuce, geez, I don't even know, these petite heads, they have hardly any calories. They're mostly all water weight. When you saw my video earlier today when I blended up literally 1 pound of greens, it compressed into almost nothing. So, you know, in processed foods and things with flour and white flour and sugar and, you know, meats and dairy and animal products, this really concentrated source of calories. So you really don't have to eat as much food to get your caloric, you know, requirements met. But when you're eating things like, especially lettuce and greens, you know, you need to eat a lot more food. So that's why, you know, the other day I made a potluck dish, basically, and it was in the same dish, but you know what, this is my salad bowl at night. Okay, so next we have the big salad here, basically my petite heirloom lettuces, and we're going to once again take the dressing, so I like to just mix it up a little bit, and I always like to use a spatula to get the dressings out, and this is going to come out pretty good. And so once again, this dressing is basically made out of, you know, 2 main ingredients. It's just Brazil nuts and cherry tomatoes. Especially in the wintertime, I often like cherry tomatoes because they have a little bit better flavor than the, you know, pink big tomatoes that we seem to find all over. The other tomatoes that I like a lot in the wintertime are the hothouse grown tomatoes, so like the ones from Costco. Those ones are really good. Still on the vine. Those ones are actually, they taste like real tomatoes almost. So I always recommend, you know, a high power blender such as the Vitamix or Blendtec Champ HP3A. This is actually a Villaware blender that I've owned for a while, and it does all right, but it has some issues with you know, long-term use. I don't use it that much, so it's quite all right for my needs. Then I'm going to just basically mix up the salad a little bit, get the dressing coated on all the different pieces of lettuce, since I don't like to have big globs of stuff. And it's really easy to do this. And so, you know, at dinner, you know, hopefully I'm having a salad full of lettuce, but you could easily take, you know, a couple heads of kale and shred that up. I think I have a video on doing just that. Or even something like cauliflower and chopping it all up, putting it in a bowl. Or I like to do a lot of like celery. Just slice the celery up and put that in a bowl. So next we're just going to cut up the baby cucumbers. And these are good. I like different textures in my meal, and this gives a nice crunchy texture. So I'll cut off the ends here. And then I'll very quickly slice them up. I just line them up all at once so I could pretty much, you know, cut them all 4 at once. And of course, you know, in the dressing you could also use things like bell pepper and, you know, I'd probably use tomatoes with bell pepper. The other thing that I'd use if I had it, but I don't have any tonight, would be sun-dried tomatoes. And then you'd have to add a little more tomatoes. And then you would be able to reduce the amount of Brazil nuts because the dried tomatoes would make the tomato stuff stick together. Last thing I'm going to add here is 1 avocado. and I happen to have a ripe avocado tonight, so that's why I'm using it. Otherwise, you know, I maybe make this recipe without even an avocado. But either I use it or it goes to waste. So let's eat it. It's a small one. Alright, diced up avocado. Sometimes I like to take the salad bowl and put it underneath the table and scoot the cutting board to the edge and just sweep it all in there. Alright, so this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com, and I'm going to go eat my dinner now. Hopefully you learned a little bit how to make a nice simple dinner with, you know, just a few ingredients. It's really quick and really easy, and we'll see you next time.